Hello and welcome to Superintendents Roundtable. I'm Deborah Vinsel, the CEO here at Thurston Community Television. Periodically, we get together with the superintendents of local school districts to talk about issues and concerns relative to the education of youth in our community. I'm pleased again to have with me four of our superintendents. You've met them before, but we'll go through introductions anyway. From the Olympia School District, Bill Lahmann. From Tumwater Schools, Mike Kirby. From the North Thurston Public Schools, Manhas. And from the Yelm City Schools, Andy Wolf. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us again today. We have a lot to talk about today, and most of it's going to center probably around money. The Washington State Legislature just finished its special session, and they did come to an agreement on a budget, and we'll get to that later. But before we get to that could be challenging, difficult conversation, let's start with some positive stories from your school districts. What is something that you've accomplished, and we're going to start with Andy, that you've accomplished in your district or that your district or students have accomplished that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Thank you for letting me be here. Honestly, this year we've had some great successes in Yelm. And one of the ones that I think stands out the most is our secondary math folks had received a Department of Defense grant to improve our math scores. And as they've gone through all the steps and gone through that piece, but the work that they've done above and beyond the grant has been tremendous. The amount of hours they put in for students, standardized grading, the pieces they've gone, it's just been really great to watch. It's the pieces that they've put in there, and so I guess I'm applauding the staff and what they've done in that world right now, and just feel really good about where we're headed in that direction, and hopefully increasing our math.
Congratulations on that. Raj, something special in the North Thurston schools you want to share?
Well, with North Thurston, one of the most important accomplishments has been implementation of response to intervention, which is basically a system approach to helping kids who are struggling in certain areas. And it was implemented throughout our school system. And along with that, a companion piece is more on the behavior side, positive behavior side. So it's really remarkable to see that within this 1 year, although it was implementation year, that we have seen almost 50% reduction in discipline problems. And that means the kids are spending more time in the classrooms and less in the principal's office. And on response to intervention, basically there are some intermediate, sort of assessments which go along, and we know where kids are, and it's not in one classroom or one school, it's in the whole school system. So this is really
from K through 12,
yes,
all levels.
And it's an amazing work which our staff, of course, our teachers and sport people in the schools, but in central office, everyone worked together. So under very difficult economic and other times going on here, I'm very pleased with that work our staff did.
Well, congratulations on that. Mike, how about the Tumwater schools? Some special accomplishment you want to share?
Well, being new, the most important thing is to see what we're doing with teaching and learning. And we're doing the right work in the Tumwater School District. And I'd like to say it's all because of me, but I'm 11 months in, not very much of it is because of me. But as Raj said, we're also doing response to intervention, really looking at the needs of the individual student and working to make sure that they're successful. The reading program that we have right now in response to intervention is outstanding. In fact, we have data that shows that students that stay with us for 3 years, it's value added in terms of their improvement. So it really shows that we're making great progress with those kids that we have. And then one other thing is we're just finishing our strategic planning process. And we had a summit about 3 weeks ago. And we had about 110 folks there, community people, students, staff, administrators. And it was a very meaningful weekend that we spent together in preparation for writing our strategic plan and developing the action plans, which are going to come out this summer. So.
We'll look forward to seeing those. Congratulations on that. Bill.
Well, in addition to our focus on reading and math, I was really pleased this year to see the increased emphasis on science. We instituted, made it a priority, and we have instituted science fairs throughout the district at our elementary and middle schools in particular. Actually, we had one of our high school students, Vamsi Chanduru, went to international competition for the International Science Fair, and did very well. I can't even pronounce what his science project is about, but he did a wonderful job. And then related to that, we're starting a science, technology, engineering, math, a STEM middle school program at Jefferson Middle School for the next year. And I think it obviously hit a chord because we were thinking we would start one section of it with essentially 30 students, and we had enough parent interest to where we're going to be running 2 sections of that. So we have 60 kids that are going to be starting, and those are just 6th graders, and then we'll roll it to 7th grade and 8th grade in the subsequent years.
Well, congratulations on
it's
that.
pretty exciting.
Okay, so you've had great accomplishments this school year and good things to look forward to. But it's going to be challenging. We know that the legislature has completed a budget, and something like $5 billion with a B, cuts to state budgets, a large impact on education at all levels. This is our perennial conversation, is funding. We talk about this every time we get together. And I know that most of you have cut your budgets to the bone, and now you're chipping away at bone. So I'm going to start with you, Raj, because I know you have some very strong feelings about this. What is the impact of the new state budget going to have on your schools, and how are we going to mitigate it?
Well, first of all, overall, I believe which has been published, and everyone and my colleagues know it, we continue to be one of the lowest funded states in the country. And on top of that, you add more reductions, of course, it is really cutting down to the bones and beyond. So from our perspective, in our school system, we cut back close to $6-7 million in the last 2, 3, 4 years, and this coming year we are cutting back another $4 million, and
so 10 to 11 million over 4 years.
4 or 5 years.
Wow.
And then you add to that some of the funding we had received from stimulus funding, a couple of years ago, that is going away, and a lot of the other things, as you read, the state has cut back, and so it's really one of the bottom. Lowest points in funding for K-12. So for specifically in our school system, we will definitely have close to 40-some positions less next year.
Will those be classroom positions?
25 of them will be classroom, and that means larger class sizes, and we are trying to spread it throughout the system, and so we can minimize the impact, but it will be an impact. And so then we have. We've worked very hard, even under very difficult economic times, and everyone, I want to give staff the sort of credit for doing this work. In this sort of environment, we are working very hard where everyone is together. We are all kind of trying to sort of go through this time in a way that we minimize the impact on our kids and our community. And so we are going to use some of our reserve to help, but to maintain the basic skeleton of the program, even with 40 positions down, it's a challenging time. So class sizes and cuts, and both on the 25 teachers, and then another 15 are on the other sport people. So that is the impact we have had.
And you have a growing district.
We have
Your
a growing district.
Grows, yeah.
So growing district, and I may have shared this before, but one of our schools, elementary school, for example, is almost approaching 800 students. So there are 500-600 students in most of the elementary schools, and so there is a growth, there is a need, and there are military families coming into our schools. So it's really providing giving us some really challenging time to manage this time and still provide quality instruction. But it will be impacted. It will be a serious impact on our.
We'll get into some more details in further discussion. So. Mike, how is the state budget going to impact the Tumwater schools?
Well, I'd like to start by framing it like Raj did a little bit, because from what I've heard, and I'm not sure if this is exactly the right number or not, but right now our teachers are funded about 46th in the nation in terms of before these most recent cuts. And the amount that we actually use to educate a child is 42nd to 44th in the nation. And as a parent and a citizen of the state, I wouldn't be very satisfied if our state was performing about 45th in the nation in terms of educating our kids. I think outside evaluators would put us somewhere between 15th and 20th at least in terms of our performance overall in the state. So that's a major disappointment for everybody in the state that that's the situation that we are in. Prior to the most recent budget cut of 3% for staff, we were going to go into our fund balance to the tune of about $500,000. We are also going to have 7 or 8 fewer teachers next year than we had last year and some classified staff. So those are all in place. And now with the 3% cut, that's going to hit us to the tune of about $450,000 on top of everything else. So we're going to have to work with our collective bargaining teams and come to some kind of resolution on all of those issues. And we'd frankly really like to support our teachers in taking a look at options, but the way the legislature provided it for us, we have to provide 180 days of school, and frankly, we all want to. We shouldn't even be talking about that. But those are our issues, really working with the collective bargaining groups right now and trying to make up that difference.
So you already had some reductions in staff planned before the budget was
Right.
trimmed, and now you're looking, okay, just wanted to
We didn't have to
clarify
riff
that.
for that, though. I need to point out that
Okay.
from resignations and
Retirements.
and retirements, we were
So
able
you
to do
were
that.
eliminating positions, not filling them.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Bill, how about Olympia Schools?
Well, we kind of have a double whammy hit because we have declining enrollment in the Olympia School District, and that's been in place over the last few years. As part of that, as well as other budget reductions, we've cut about $6 million over the last 5 years, and we're looking at needing to cut another $2
For the next school year?
For next school year, yeah. And so we have instituted a RIF. We needed to get down to adjust for enrollment and then down further to adjust for the budget. So overall, we'll be down about 40 teaching positions next year than we are this year. That doesn't count our classified staff, so we're looking at reductions as well for our support staff that are there as well. We're going to see larger class sizes, no question about it. The legislature came in mid-year this year and took away some supplemental funding for K-3, kindergarten through 3rd grade staffing, and that hit us pretty significantly. And so our primary grades are going to go up on average by about from 23 to 25 kids at that level, and the upper grades are going to even go higher. So we're going to probably redo our transportation system, and which will mean our schools will not be all starting at the same times like they historically have done, secondary at one time and elementary at another time. We're reducing administration. We're cutting activities. So it's a pretty big.
It's grim.
It is. It is. It's the difficulty is you know we all live in communities that support our schools, and so the challenge is when they pass our levies and they pass our bonds and they really show a lot of support. How do I explain that, or how do we explain that says we're having to reduce programs even though you're providing us maximum support? So that's a real frustration.
Andy, what's the story out in Yelm? And I misspoke earlier. I said you were from the Yelm City Schools. It's the Yelm Community Schools. My apology for getting your name wrong. So.
That's all right. I appreciate that. You know, I think that what these gentlemen have said, I can echo clearly too, in the fact that obviously the legislature is not fully funding education, basic education in the state of Washington. We all know that. We accept that. We don't like it, but that is a fact. In Yelm Schools, we've been real fortunate. We started about 2 years ago looking at this economic downturn and really started to prepare for that. So we've had to make some significant cuts. We did the administration, and we did transportation, and we did our operations and those things very early in the game to get us to a point where this year we did not have to riff or make any major adjustments as far as programs. However, we, as Tumwater, we looked at our retirement and resignations and people and just are not filling those positions and just waiting to see what will happen with enrollment as it comes down. A lot like what Olympia is talking about, we will have staggered starts for all our buildings next year. We've really looked at the efficiencies and the operations of their district and really more business oriented on the operations side and really had to cut to some pretty significant issues there as far as maintenance of your buildings and grounds and things, which obviously if you don't keep those things up, that infrastructure then will fall apart on you down the road and will cost you more. I'm going to follow what Bill said. The hardest piece I think will be for our taxpayers and our people to know is that the state has saved money by passing that debt along to our local, taxpayers. And that'll be a hard piece, and that'll be a thing as we go out next year. I think we all go out next year for maintenance operations and levies, and we'll ask for that support to understand that really, the state was able to cut that burden, but they effectively just passed it on to our tax holders. So, but for the most part, we feel like that programs and things will be intact. It's been a lot of hard work. We're asking people to do more with less.
So you don't see any reduction in any programs that are currently available to students?
Not at this point in time.
Academic or
No.
extracurricular?
We actually made those reductions a year ago. The biggest thing for us we'll be heavily impacted by some of the stimulus funds that are gone. The ARRA money will be gone now, and so we know that that'll be. And then there's a reduction in title from our feds, and then obviously in the special education world, that's never fully funded. So that's a huge drain on all our budgets. So
How many positions do you anticipate not filling?
at this point in time, we're holding 13 positions that we'll just kind of look at, and we're pretty. We have a really good sense of what our population is in Yelm because we are really a close community. We're not, our boundaries are pretty good, so we can kind of predict what our kindergarten, looking at birth rates and going down that and seeing that, and then try to work closely with the military population to know who's coming and who's going. And we are about 28% probably military in Yelm at this point in time, probably not to the same tune that Roz or North Thurston has. So it is a more controllable number for us to really get that information back and forth. So we're kind of holding on to those pieces.
Okay, good. So Mike, we're going to start with you on this one. What are you most concerned about in relative to the impact of the cuts? What are you most concerned about with the impact of the cuts to student learning? Are there particular programs that you're really worried you may not be able to continue, or?
I think I'm most concerned about the workload of our teachers. Class size is going to go up a little bit, but not too much. We're going to, if you go up too much, then there's overload. So, but another concern that I have, especially at our elementaries, is our combination classrooms. And we're going to have a larger number of combination classrooms. By necessity, to budget smartly, we need to do that. But if you're going to implement response to intervention effectively, you're going to have teachers that have to work with two different teams.
Right.
It really creates a huge workload for those teachers that have to do that kind of work.
To clarify for viewers, combination is like combination first and second grade?
Right,
or,
third and fourth,
Right.
fifth, sixth, something like that. So it's really very difficult because right now we have a culture established with professional learning communities, and our teachers, grade level teachers, are working very effectively with each other at the elementary level. Secondary, by department, they're starting to become very effective teams. But when you have a combined classroom like this, it doubles the workload, and it really inhibits the teacher's ability to work effectively with different groups of kids. That's one of the biggest issues I have.
Okay. Bill, what's your biggest concern?
Well, I would echo what Mike says. It's going to be much more difficult. Our teachers and our support staff are going to have a larger challenge. We'll have more kids in the classroom, which really impacts our ability to be able to get down and provide that basic support for those kids, or the actual additional support that some of our students need.
So that would be loss of like teaching assistants or classroom assistants that
Right.
might be there but won't be there next year?
That's
Gotcha.
true. And you'll have teachers that are having more kids to deal with, and probably less support related to that. We're trying to make sure we have supplemental materials that we can get into their hands, but we're probably going to put our curriculum adoptions on hold because those are pretty big price tags as well. And then at the secondary level, we're probably going to have less course offerings at our high schools than what we've had in the past. And we just don't have the ability to be able to staff to those levels.
Is it kind of across the board, or will it be you'll have fewer like IB or advanced placement classes, or fewer classes in the arts, or?
It probably, will keep the basic curriculum in place. Those will have larger class sizes, but the courses that historically have had 12 to 18 kids in them, we can't afford to run those classes anymore. So they'll either be really big classes with those in them, or we'll have to figure out another way of offering those, either online or.
What is the number? I mean, what would be the minimum class size? We'll come back around to maintain a class, given the budget constraints you're having.
Well, we're funding our secondary schools at a 30-to-1 ratio, but the problem with that is that means that there are some classes that are going to be 35, 39 kids, and some that will be in the 25. Right. So kids don't fall in neat little boxes, but we're hearing that there are classes that are in our high schools that are 35, 39 students in them, and that's a lot.
That's a lot of kids.
Yes, it is.
Andy?
Yeah, basically I think that, as the funding model continues to erode, that's going to be a problem for all of us. But I think that as we go forward in this process, I can't really add much more than what they've said. It's clearly it's going to be a workload for our teachers. We ask them to be more accountable. We're asking students to be more accountable. We're taking more tools away from them to do their job. Higher class size, which means less impact with student time. We don't have the resources to put in front of them, that they would need to make the work easier. And I just think that as we continue through that erosion, that ripple effect will go a long ways. I will say that I'm very proud of how teachers across our state have responded, especially in this area. I mean, they haven't balked, they haven't bowed their neck. They've really just dug in, and they really are about students, about teaching and learning. And we've really found that resiliency has come forward, and that's something that's, through all this adversity, that's the one thing that I'm most pleased with, is to watch how these people have handled this, and they've just kind of wrapped their arms around the problem and continue to go forward. It is very unfair to them to ask them to give so much of their own resources at home and time and impact their families, but I do applaud them for the work that they're doing at this point.
It illustrates that it really is a calling.
It is.
It's something that calls your heart. So, Raj, what are you most concerned about in the North Thurston
Well, I think
schools?
has been said, class size for us, K3, on average 27 kids, and then you go 4, 6, 32 kids, and secondary 32 average. Of course, that it will vary depending upon, so 36 is a possibility in some classes, and 31 or 30 in others. So class size is a big issue. And now this is on top of course, now we are going to be asking them to be, their salaries will be impacted, in one form or another. We are right in the discussions with all of our groups, because we cannot absorb the 3% and 1.9% cuts, without doing something with the salaries. So given these two things, it's the morale of the staff, which is the biggest concern I have as a leader of the school system, that they're very passionate people about the work they do every day in their classrooms, but how far we can continue to stretch them,
right,
and say, keep on working harder and harder.
Right.
And I also want to add one more thing which has been said by my colleagues. Although 40-some positions are going to be less next year, with amazing work of cooperation and our relationships with all the associations and everything, we were able to there are only 6 teachers in elementary level who won't have jobs. The others were retirements, and so we didn't give RIF notices to more than 6 people. So that was, I felt it was an amazing accomplishment by the school system, and I want to thank each and every one of them.
So, I can understand how maintaining morale with your staff when,
Yes.
I mean, less isn't more.
No,
less is less.
Absolutely.
In this case.
Yes.
And as a former teacher,
Yes.
I do know that there were times when sometimes I didn't feel valued for what I did. So
Yes.
I can understand where maintaining the morale and helping teachers to know that they are a valuable part of our community and our society and what they do with our children. So I could see where that could be a big challenge. There are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that I think are fairly transparent to the community. I mean, you change class sizes. Well, this class is going to go from 30 to 35, and those are not quite so transparent. And it's often things that have maybe a little more visibility in the community that get reduced that people really notice. So are there going to be some things in any of your districts that the community is really going to notice next year as a result of budget cuts? Let's start with you.
Okay. I think our community is going to notice the change in our start-stop times. That is one where we're very aware of the impact it will have on families as far as childcare, as far as, you know, when do I leave for work and when does my child leave for school. There are also issues related to who gets out first, so they're home to take care of younger brother or sister. And so I think that that's probably the biggest one that our community is going to see.
So can you elaborate on that? When you say differences in start-stop times, what does that mean?
Well, it means that instead of starting at 8 o'clock, our high schools will start before 8 o'clock. Probably the proposal that I put forth, they start at 7:45. Our middle schools will start, what we're trying to do is loop our buses several times. It will actually reduce several of our
Fewer
routes.
buses, fewer drivers.
Right.
More routes, right.
Some of our elementary schools will start as late as 9:23 or 9:25 in the morning. And right now they start at 9 o'clock, or 9 o'clock. And they're going to start at different times. Not all the middle schools are going to get out at the same time, which impacts.
So it's not even by grade level,
No.
it'll be.
It'll impact after-school activities because you've got a school that gets out 40 minutes earlier than the other school. What do the kids do for that period of time while they're waiting to get involved with activities with the other school? So really, you know, in addition, I think our community is really well aware of class sizes. So they're going to see that. Olympia, as is the other 3 school districts, we value smaller class sizes, and so they're going to see that. But publicly out there, probably the
That's
start
going
and
to be the
stop
big one,
times.
start
I think
stop
so in ours.
and transportation. Andy?
Broken record, we're in the same boat. We're going to loop our routes. Actually, it's a model that North Thurston put out a couple of years ago that actually we're all basically kind of following at this point in time to create more efficiencies in that. So, you know, like our high school will start at 7:30 and be done at 1:50 in the day. And
Wow.
so to push them through, and then we'll have one elementary that will finish at 3:45 at night. So we've got ours staggered so that our secondary students will be well home before their feeder schools that feed them. We're able to do that little smaller district with only 10 schools, and so that'll be one of the things. But they'll also notice if you've been to Yelm, there's quite a bit of traffic. So they'll notice that there's going to be 6 or 7 less buses going down the main street of Yelm too. So that will help. So that'll be one of the pieces. But with that staggered starts, obviously impacts PLCs because they do that often on our late start Wednesdays, and how that will work in our cross districts,
PLCs?
Professional learning communities,
Right, gotcha.
and how our teachers impact. So there'll be some challenges that way, but really class size and the transportation start and stop times will be our main issues this next year. And again, we're very fortunate. Our community has been really great about giving suggestions about how we can do things in our district to help save those dollars. And so I think that we've kind of minimized or maximized about all that we can at this point.
Okay. Raj, what's the biggest thing?
So the staggered times, as Andy said, it was implemented like 3 years ago before I arrived. So already we have reduced that budget close to $600,000, you know, maybe more. So we continue to fine tune, continue to adjust, but it is not right actually to have our high school kids 7:30 in classrooms. I mean, it's just their biological clock, you know, it doesn't work very well.
Teenagers aren't awake at
But
7:30.
these are the things, you know,
Yeah.
I do hear from parents, I do hear from students, and actually students in one high school invited me, and this was one of the serious issue they talked about. So that is, we have already done that, but it's continued work again to provide the response to intervention with struggling kids. You know, so we are trying to patchwork some time where buses are available so we can take them home. So those kind of adjustment will continue. But our goal is to, with very limited resources again, try to maintain that basics of education so we don't really erode that.
Yeah, is there something that is going to, other than the start-stop times, which you've already had, but is there a program or a process or something that's going to be very different for your folks next year that the community would take notice of?
Well, here is one of the challenges in our school system especially. I say in our school system because with the 40% poverty and a lot of other issues we have to deal with, some of the kids who come to us on a daily basis. We cannot really cut back some of the basic sports because without that education, to a kid who's hungry and who's, so those kind of, but overall I want to say that this community, North Thurston community, has really been big supporter of performing arts, music. So the board and the community we had 3 community meetings. This is again, I'm very proud of the work our staff does, where we had very well attended, to discuss the class size, discuss other things. But that comes back again and again. We don't want to cut back. Now here is the challenge which my colleagues have said already. In our school system, we are a growing district. We need to go out to the community for bond to build schools so that we don't have 700 kids sitting in one elementary school with 17, 18 different portables. So then you ask them for resources to help us. And with that poverty I described, so it's a kind of balancing act. When the state has cut back down to the bones, and then we go back to the community. And by the way, we're going to cut most favorite program you have.
Right.
So it's a very, very difficult time. I think that the area of few maintenance people or few custodians, and those are sort of continued erosion of basics of our school system.
Okay, so nothing really jarring there. Anything going to happen in the Tumwater schools that people are going to go, ha, didn't see that coming?
Well, just to go along with my colleagues here, we already have elementary staggered starts to our schools. So there's nothing else we can do there, frankly, to improve that. Our high schools start at 7:40. I think that's too early for high schools to start, but that could have been in place for a long time, I'm not sure. What you're not going to see is a lot of differences from the outside. It's going to look pretty similar to what it has looked. What I hope you don't see is stress signs on our kids and on our teachers, because this just can't keep going on and on without that starting to show up in different places. As Raj had mentioned, we're working with PBIS, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. We're doing lots of things to try to improve the environment for kids and how they relate to each other and staff and so on. So we're doing all of that work, but on top of it, the stresses from the outside continue to increase. So what I hope we don't see are increases in the number of behavioral issues for students and the stress that are going to come with our teachers in the more difficult environment they have to work in.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right there, because it's been stressful at home. I mean, I'm sure all of you have students who have families that are feeling the stress of the economic time, and going to school is an opportunity to kind of decompress from all of that and be in a supportive and nurturing environment. And not that home isn't supportive and nurturing, but it's a different environment. And if those economic stresses start to impact in the classroom, I could see where it would have a huge impact on your students and on your teachers. So, what lessons have we learned? We've talked about funding in all of these districts for the last 3 years and how it's been decreasing. So I know we've all learned significant lessons about how to stretch a dollar. But are there things that you've learned that, as the economy improves, as funding increases, we hope over the next decade or so, are there lessons that you've learned that you're going to move forward with, that you're going to take into the future? And I've kind of forgotten where we are in the list, so I think we'll just go back to you, Andy, and start over there. It's your turn to go first.
I think that one of the things we've learned is to clearly target our resources to programs and to look at the layers that come in, sometimes in all levels. I don't care if it's at home or in business or at schools. Sometimes programs get put in place and then they're held on to, and maybe they needed to be pushed off or things. So this has been an opportunity to really look at really some of the things that haven't been as effective, and then replace them with targeted resources. And I think that's one of the lessons. And I think the other thing too is that I think one of the things that we want to hold on to is we do want to be a great institution for education, but let's face it, we're social agencies too. we do wrap our arms around kids. We do take care of those needs that they have, and we do come there. And so how to better utilize that the community connection with those services out there and do the triage and work with them. So there have been growth opportunities in this process as we go through that. And then I think from the business side, it's just don't spend outside your means. You know, you just really have to really know what your resources are, what's going to come in, and you really have to prioritize. And in the past, you know, we've tried to do many, many things for all students. And I think what you're hearing these gentlemen say is that, you know, it's too soon to know what that erosion will look like. Raj talked about the performing arts and those types of things. Those are huge loves in all our districts, you know, in this area. But at some point in time, you just don't know when the rubber's going to hit the road, I guess, in that situation. So again, be very targeted with your resources. Don't spend outside your practices, and continue to find ways to build great relationships with the community so that we can support students and take care of them and the needs when they have it.
Raj?
I think the most important lesson, I believe, for not only our school system, all of us, but the state, somehow I feel our society and our legislators and everyone has you know, sort of learned out of this, that it is not possible to become the sort of educational community we want to become, where we are compared regularly on the national press and everywhere internationally, and with the lowest funding for for the education. And I think right there is, I believe, a real disconnect, a gap. Communities all over the state in general support education. Mm-hmm. So then I wonder, how come that doesn't translate into being at least in the middle in the country? So this is something which I always ponder, and we all ponder, but I think this is an area which I hope is a lesson for our community, that without proper investment, we cannot continue to sort of provide the sort of education we need to provide. And it's not in elementary, middle, or it's beyond community colleges and university. For us, I think we want to be very strategic, as has been said, in what are those functions and areas we can sustain. Because when money like federal money comes in and goes away after a year or two, it does more damage. And a lot of areas. You know, you can do some patchwork and do some things, but we need to sustain and really continue to look at those areas which we can't support and be very strategic about that. So those are a couple of thoughts come to my mind.
Mike?
Well, in general, we just need to be very focused, very intentional, very purposeful in how we spend our money so that we're more efficient. We need to use data. And you know, we're using data to determine what's effective with students in terms of their achievement. We need to use data to determine what's effective in terms of our programs that we have in our districts. The other piece that, frankly, I've learned is that the way education is funded in the state of Washington doesn't work. Every time there's a economic downturn, we're going to be dealing with this type of situation. I've seen it multiple times in my career. This is the most severe I've seen it, but you know, very likely 5 years from now we could be going through the same thing again after an upswing. So from a statewide perspective, we need to look at how we fund education, and in the educational system we just need to keep focused on alignment and be as purposeful as we can be.
Bill?
Well, I would, again, we have a common thread runs throughout this. It's one to where I don't think we can continue on this path with the reduced funding and provide a quality education at a time when we're being held accountable to higher standards to compete in the world. We're taking a $2 million cut, $8 million over 6 years cut in support for that quality education. Bringing it back down to our district, one of the things that I really am proud, as my colleagues have said, of the way our staff has stepped up to the plate and looked for every possible way for efficiencies. And I use one example. We have what's called a resource conservation manager. It's a person that really looks at how we're using our energy. And over the last 2 years, she's been able to save by putting in new thermostats, by working with Puget Sound Energy, by working with the city, $640,000. She's been able to reduce our costs. That's at a time when the cost of energy,
Energy
as we
costs
all
are
know,
going
is
up.
going up. So it's one to where every little thing is what we're looking at. We're looking at the cost of our copier contracts. And again, an example of how our community really has stepped up. Instead of going with national companies, we have a local company that has said, we'd like to work with you on your copy machines. It's a huge cost for schools, the rental on that. And so we're probably going to be saving close to $100,000 in on a district-wide basis in copier contracts. So there are things to where everybody is looking at every possible way. You notice both of the examples I gave you were not direct impact on students.
Right.
There are things that are around us that we're trying to support students. And yeah, I'm just really impressed with our staff and their focus on trying to stretch every dollar as far as we can. That's what we have to do.
Well, you know, 100,000 here and 100,000 there, and pretty soon you're talking real money.
We're talking teachers'
So,
positions.
yeah. Well, we've come to the time of the show that I always enjoy, and this is our last program for this school year. So I do want to give you an opportunity to share a favorite story from since our last meeting, and we last met in November, but there's always moments in educators' days or weeks when, you know, a student or a teacher or somebody, you know, has a story to share that really solidifies your purpose and why you do what you do. So, Raj, I'm going to start with you. Has there been a special moment that you'd like to share with us from the school year?
Well, you know, this is a story under very difficult times. The 6 teachers who won't have jobs unless, you know, we grow more than what we have, or somebody else resigns or retires, you know, they won't come back. And I made a point of meeting those 6 people, 6 teachers. I went to their schools, spent some time with them. The really inspiring part is that these young people, they're all young, first-year teachers mostly, they are very good teachers, I've been told by the principals and everyone who works with them. And the part really inspirational for me was each and every one of them said to me that given the opportunity, we'll come back, we'll teach it. They don't have a job for next year, but that is the part which is hurtful. You know, you look directly into their eyes and say, okay, they went into this profession with a passion, with a love for teaching, and they can go to some other businesses and make a lot more money. So the part inspirational for me is that they're still young people coming to teaching. I hope we can maintain that kind of attraction to our school systems, because without that, we can all sit here and say we have all the dollars and everything. If we can't inspire young people to go into teaching, that would be very difficult.
Mike, special story for you?
Well, a couple. One in general is at least twice this year I've provided an opportunity for myself to be accessible to each building staff and classified work group, and those interactions have been very special, very frank, open. The concern that our teachers have for our kids is amazing, and we've had some really good dialogue, and I really appreciate those. On a totally different note, I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention Sid Otten, head football coach for the Tumwater T-Birds. Him and his staff this last year and their team won the state title in football. That's a major accomplishment for any school, and this is his 5th in his amazing career, so I need to make sure that we get that out there.
Go T-Birds. Bill, how about you?
Well, I had the opportunity, once a year we get together all of our career and technical education advisory committees. Those are people in our community that come in and help us work on what our students that are in career and technical education classes should know, and what the programs and what the jobs are. Well, I went to that, and sitting there was our national winner. It was Colma Johnson, who is the National DECA, Distributive Education Careers, I forget what the A stands for, Association, thank you, was there. And so I got to chat with him a little bit about it. He's a freshman at Capitol High School, and he's as humble of a young man as as I've ever run into. And so, I said, so what did you do to, how did you get to be national champion? And he goes, well, I had a lot of people that worked with me, and I just worked hard. Sitting next to him was, of course, his instructor. And she had indicated that this was a young man that had never been involved in marketing in any way. That was what his project was in. Never been involved in marketing. He's a freshman, so he's a 9th grader coming out of middle school, and just decided to get involved with DECA at Capitol High School. And he had mock interviews with anybody that he could present to, including community members, and he went all the way to the nationals. And so to me, it's just a culmination of community support, of just outstanding educators that got him there, not just his career and tech ed teachers, but the rest of his teachers that got him to that level. And so it was really exciting for me to get to talk to that young man and to see how humble and how appreciative he was for all the support that his teachers had given him.
Well, lots of wonderful success stories. Well, gentlemen, thank you again for joining us at the end of the school year. We've got, oh, I'm sorry, Andy, no
it's all
special
right.
story from you?
Yeah, I just thought, you know what? It's Yelm City,
No.
Yelm Community, we're okay.
No.
I'll keep it short.
My
for you, but
apologies.
no, that's
Please,
fine.
we've got time. Go
Okay,
for
great.
it.
Yelm's had a banner year. We've had successes all across from elementary to our high school. From our 3rd and 5th grade class that won the Washington State Potato Commission greenhouse.
Wow.
Sustainable food and how to grow and do things and giving back to the community, and that to our high school. Our FA's #1 chapter in the state again, and kind of going through that, and tremendous success athletically. But one of the things that's really amazing about Yelm is that not too long ago, we have a group called Dollars for Scholars that works outside our school that provides scholarships for our students, and they had their annual auction where they raised over $150,000 in about 3 hours of money that would be
Wow.
put back to students in this economic time. And the other night, they were able to award those scholarships to our seniors. And so when you see 165, 170 plus kids on our stage, all waiting to get a scholarship, it's a pretty amazing.
impressive.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing night. And the fact that the kids have just really gone forward. And again, I'm going to go back to the piece that probably my most favorable memory this year is that through all the challenges that we've seen, all the distractions that could be out there, Yelm Community Schools as a group has really focused on teaching and learning and taking care of the students. And that's my most memorable. I walk through buildings every day like these guys do, and I'm amazed at the resilience of our staff, our parents, and even our students who know that things are a little tougher. But they're coming there to get the work done and to continue to do that. And I just really appreciate that piece.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Again, I apologize.
That's okay.
Congratulations to all of you for a successful year. And to Mike, you've completed your first year at the Roundtable, so we look forward to seeing you again in the fall, and we'll try to schedule a few more of these in the next school year. So thank you all for joining us. Graduation's coming up. We know that's going to be a big season for all of you, and then maybe a tiny chance to decompress a little bit over the summer. So do take some time for yourselves, gentlemen. You all need it and deserve it, I'm sure. So, and thank you all for joining us. I do want to make a shameless plug for some summertime activities. Now that the kids are out of school, there are opportunities here at TCTV for your youth to be involved in media programs. The TCTV Summer Media Programs for Youth are now accepting registrations. If you'd like more information, we have 15 workshops scheduled over the summer for kids from the ages of 8 through 16. Go to tctv.net, click on the tab that says Youth at the top of our homepage for more information about the classes. If you're the parent of a preschool child, remember, read with your child at least 20 minutes a day. It's one of the best things you can do to prepare them for education. And while you're at it, throw in some fun little number games to get them interested in math. If you have a school-age student, find out how you can get involved in your child's education. Call your school principal or talk to your child's teacher. There are numerous volunteer opportunities for parents in all of these school districts. Thank you for joining us today. It's been my pleasure to be here at the Roundtable with our superintendents. We'll see you again in the fall.